Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and we're going to start off with a doozy. The Electoral College is a failure. The founding fathers would probably agree. Apparently, Joshua Spivak is a senior fellow at the Hugh L. Carey Institute for Government Reform at Wagner College. He writes at the Recall Elections blog. As the presidential campaign heats up, so too has the movement to abolish or otherwise neutralize the Electoral College. Some advocates argue that the Electoral College was originally established to help less populated areas or states retain powers, or to have every part of the country heard from in electing a chief executive. Representative Steve Cohen, Democrat of Tennessee, claims the system was designed to help the slave states. No, but these are modern interpretations of what really happened at the Constitutional Convention of 1787. The Electoral College was designed with two purposes: to separate the branches of government in an attempt to avoid cabals and to prevent foreign corruption. Some of the founding fathers assumed it would almost never actually elect a president. In other words, we could say the Electoral College failed to achieve what most of the founders designed it to do. The Electoral College was not a replacement for direct election because that possibility never received serious consideration at the convention. Only 2 of 11 states voted for a popular election of the president. As James Madison's notes make clear, I'd love to see a link to those notes. There was very little support for a popular election of the president. The original idea in his influential Virginia plan was that the new bicameral legislature, Congress, would itself gather to elect the executive, and the convention repeatedly returned to that idea. We may find this odd, but during the 1780s, such a setup was the norm. In 8 of the 13 states, the state legislature elected the governor. In 2 other states, if no candidate received an absolute majority of the popular vote, the legislature had power of selection. Nevertheless, the idea of the legislature electing a president disturbed the convention delegates, who were focused on establishing separation of powers and averting foreign influence. Having Congress elect the president would result in corruption and cabals, according to Pennsylvania's Governor Morris, who is credited with actually handwriting the Constitution. Alexander Hamilton, who first proposed the Electoral College, focused on the potential dangers of foreign corruption. Having the elections spread among the states rather than the compact Congress would help ward off the dangers of foreign powers gaining an improper ascendant in our councils. The Electoral College was adopted to serve as an alternative to Congress in the presidential election process, spread out among the states, and with no members of Congress allowed to serve in the body. To win election, a candidate would have to win a majority of electoral votes. If that failed to occur, Congress would ultimately decide who among the candidates receiving votes would become president. In fact, most delegates thought the latter scenario would be the norm, with the Electoral College nominating the 5 most worthy candidates so that Congress could select a president from that group. One delegate, George Mason, predicted that Congress would be deciding the president 19 times out of 20. Anti-Federalist paper number 72 claimed the Electoral College settling on a president was not likely to happen twice in the same century. That's not what happened, though. George Washington would easily win electoral majorities in 1789 and 1792, but after he left office, the Electoral College plan almost immediately began to break down. Instead of multiple candidates running for the presidency as the founding fathers had expected, political parties quickly formed, and presidential elections seemed to become one-on-one fights. The election of 1800 spelled doom for the original plan, resulting in an electoral college tie between Thomas Jefferson and his presumed running mate Aaron Burr. The vote went to the House of Representatives, which took 36 ballots to elect Jefferson. The debacle led to the adoption of the 12th Amendment, which changed the vice president from a competitor and runner-up, in most cases, to a subservient running mate. The next time Congress had to choose the president was in 1824, when Andrew Jackson, who finished first in the Electoral College, lost in the House to John Quincy Adams. Since then, except for the disputed 1876 election, Congress has not been involved in a single presidential selection. The Electoral College, instead, has moved up from its more humble beginnings as a potential nominating body to serving as the real selector of presidents. The Electoral College did not succeed in warding off the creation of cabals, better known today as political parties, and as the 2016 election showed, foreign powers have been very happy to try to manipulate the election. We'll come back to that. And the current version of the Electoral College did nothing to limit such behavior. Despite this, all the plans to get rid of the Electoral College are, at the moment, fantastical. The Republican Party is firmly opposed to the idea, and there seems little hope that Republicans will change their mind. The Interstate Compact has not been adopted by any red states, and even if it passed, it would be certain to face legal challenges. It's safe to say the Electoral College is here to stay, but in accepting that, we shouldn't pretend as though the Electoral College is part of some grand bargain that the founders enacted to balance the country. It's not. It's a relic of the 18th century that failed in some of its most important intended purposes. Now, I'm going to show something here because, very simply, and we're going to use one that was from an actual election, 270 to win from 2020 presidential election interactive map. If you look at this, you will see that each state has the same number of electoral votes as it has members in the House of Representatives. You have some states like Delaware or Washington, D.C. or Rhode Island that have less than 5. You have some states like California or Texas where they have greater than 30. And this is because they are the more populous states. The problem comes into play when you look at actual population, okay? Right now, the state of California cannot override more states than a total of 55 Electoral College votes, which doesn't normally come into play. But with the Electoral College gone, California, New York, possibly Illinois, maybe Washington and Oregon, so 5 to 6 states could overrule the entirety of the rest of the country. This is not what the founders intended. No, it was not put into place simply and only to be a nominating platform for 5 to 6 candidates that Congress would then select. That may have been one of the items debated. I have yet to find my copies of what I have from the original Constitutional Convention, but I am going to look for those. Yes, I know that the founders were opposed to political parties. I don't like them myself, because when you get a cabal like that, you end up with the ideological crap we're seeing today. Every Democrat is running on abortion on demand, socialist projects, programs, and gun control. And they're all parroting each other. Every Republican is running on quite the opposite. So far, we've not seen a Republican announce they are running, but we've seen Democrat after Democrat after Democrat after liberal after liberal after liberal announce they're running for the nomination. In all likelihood, next year's DNC meeting will be nothing more than a brawl done with words by 20 to 30 to 40 people, all saying, no, I'm the best, give me the nomination, these people are all horrible. The party of Republicans hate minorities, Republicans hate women, is going to prove themselves to be that party. You will see people attack Kamala Harris because she is not a white woman, she is not white, and she is a woman. You will see people attack Beto O'Rourke. Robert Francis is his real name. I'm honestly curious to see who, if any of them, will actually pose the question, why do you use the name Beto when you are not, in fact, any percentage Hispanic? You are Irish. I know of no one, and I know many people who live in very Hispanic areas. And of those that are not Hispanic, none of them have yet to truly adopt a Hispanic name. I have many friends of mine from high school who are of many different ethnicities, and yes, some of them did give me nicknames that were popular among their own family or their own heritage. None of them stuck with me because I'm not Hispanic, I'm not African American. I am German Irish English. It's just who I am. Now, Beto seems to want to portray himself as Hispanic, so expect someone to bring that up. The party of we need to stop identity politics and stop electing white men is becoming fast the party of nothing but identity politics. But the push to end the Electoral College would not, in fact, be supported by any of the Founding Fathers. They would push to end the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and they would reiterate that political parties are something they specifically warned against, that being cabals. and that being foreign influence, because we know that all of our 535 members are well acquainted with international politics. Many of them meet with international leaders regularly. So, why would we want that body electing the president? We don't. It's very simple. The Electoral College is established by the Constitution. It clearly states that the states will have the same number of Electoral College votes as they have members of the House of Representatives. That is determined by population. It clearly states that the members of the Electoral College, which cannot include a current congressman, will meet and cast their votes. And the person who receives 270, in this case, although that number has been different through time, but the person who receives that majority of Electoral College votes will become president. Much like the Second Amendment, much like every other amendment to the Constitution, much like Articles 1 through 3, which establish our branches of government, no one, not a member of Congress, not a governor, not a mayor, not a state legislature, not the president, not even Supreme Court, can just go poof, gone. It must take a constitutional amendment to do this. In order to do this, there are two options. One, 2/3 of both houses of Congress pass the amendment and send it to the 50 states. 3/4 of said states, that being 38, then ratify that amendment. If that happens, that amendment becomes part of the Constitution, either enacting a new provision or editing or repealing a previous one. Option 2, something of which I am actually involved with a grassroots organization, is an Article 5 convention. That being where when 2/3 of the states, that being number being 34, call for a convention by passing resolutions in their state legislature, the convention is called. The delegates are selected by each state and sent to the convention, where they then propose and debate amendments and vote on them. Any amendment passed by this Article 5 Convention of States is then sent to each of the 50 states for ratification. 38 must ratify. That's it. The Electoral College is not something anyone in the government at any level today can just say we're not going to use it. The states that are saying we're going to obey the popular vote of the country, those states are destroying their relevance in electoral processes. What happens if, say, New Mexico, which has currently or has recently said they're going to do this, what happens when that state votes red, but the country majority is blue? Are they going to tell the majority of their residents who voted against the Democrat, nope, sorry, people in other states are deciding how New Mexico votes? This is a recipe for disaster with New Mexico. And it's a recipe for disaster for the country, in fact, because we have such concentrations of population in states like California, New York, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, even in Texas, where those states, if given the popular vote, could control the election from pretty much for the long time foreseeable future. This is, of course, exactly what Democrats want. They know that all but one or two of the most populated states in the nation always vote blue, overwhelmingly. If you look, though, at a map of California by county, you'll see a preponderance of counties actually had a majority red, and that it was San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, where you have people living on top of each other like roaches or sardines, that outvoted everyone else in the state. And this is what Democrats care about. They're also proposing other things to help get around this by, well, 16-year-olds are not mature enough to own a firearm, but they're mature enough to vote. And we're supposed to believe that. These are 16-year-olds who have been posting videos of themselves licking toilets and eating Tide Pods. Yet we're supposed to allow them to vote. I personally prefer the other proposal I saw, where you may not vote if you are not eligible to be drafted for the military, or are past the age where you may be drafted and you are not a felon. If you are of age to enter the military by conscription or volunteer, or you are older than the age where you may enlist voluntarily or be conscripted, you may own firearms. We trust these people at 18 years old to fight for the country, and yes, they may vote, but the Democrats, the party of one person, one vote. We need to end the Electoral College. Is also the party of, oh, guns are so evil. I don't care that you're in the military. You can't own one. It's insanity to me. It honestly is. Now, I don't know how much faith I put in this because right now we're seeing 50 plus percentage approval rating for President Donald Trump. Yet they're giving him 219 instead of, and the Democrats 232. I don't see it happening. And I don't trust websites like this because everyone has a bias. It's part of being human. But for the entirety of the election cycle in 2016, it was Hillary Clinton 95% or more to win. And then November came, and we had journalists, or supposed journalists, weeping on television that Donald Trump had won the election. We're going to see nasty politics from the Democrats. And that's going to lead us right back to what happened in 2016. Hillary stole the nomination from Bernie Sanders. Therefore, Bernie Sanders split a large portion of the vote for the Democrats out. Some of them voted for Hillary, some of them voted for Trump, some voted for Jill Stein, some refused to vote. But it's well known that when you have a split like this, look at the election of 1992, when Ross Perot cost George Herbert Walker Bush the election because of his, I'm running, no I'm not, I'm running, no I'm not. But at the ultimate end, he was running, but not seriously, and therefore the vote was split and William Jefferson Clinton won. We need to stop the yammering and crying and ordering of the country to just obey us and eliminate what we don't like because it keeps us from running everything. There's a very simple, straightforward solution. That is that if there is a part of the Constitution you do not like, obey the rules and try to change it. Lobby your House members and your senators to get 2/3 of each of those bodies to pass an amendment, and then lobby at the states to get 38 to ratify. Don't just demand that what you don't like just be stricken. Very similar to Kamala Harris and the rest of them on their stance on immigration. For 8 years, when Obama was enforcing the law and ICE was deporting people, stopping people at the border, not letting them cross illegally, none of them said so much as a boo about it. But with Donald Trump enforcing the exact same laws, and in a more humane way than Barack Obama's administration, all of a sudden these laws are the most evil, heinous, horrible, bigoted thing on the planet, and we just have to stop. None of them has the spine to introduce a law, or, in the case of this story, to introduce an amendment to actually do it. They just use it as a talking point. This is going to be the talking point for the Eric Swalwells and the Kamala Harrises and the Bernie Sanders all over the left. They're going to be talking about it. They're going to be ramping it up. They're going to be demanding that it just be done. And when they fail, they will blame, of course, the evil Republicans. But it's just the way they work. But I've talked long enough. This is one of my longer ones, honestly, it is. I will, of course, link this in the description. Make sure to let me know what you think below. Just keep the comments civil and classy. I've already had at least 3 or 4 people that, honestly, I block. They can probably still see the videos, but they can't comment because they've moved directly to insulting people. And when you move to insult, you prove you're not willing to debate. You're only here to argue. And I don't do that. Also, please like the video and hit subscribe. That way you'll be kept up to date with all the future content. Not only stories like this, but also when I start jumping down rabbit holes. Until the next time, though, everyone have a wonderful day.